start? Okay, so today we will look at some exact solutions. So we'll start with torsion. So our governing equations, let me state, so del dot tau plus rho b equal to 0, because we are going to consider only statics problems. Then epsilon is equal to half of del u plus del u transpose, and tau is equal to lambda trace of epsilon times identity plus 2 mu times epsilon. So these are going to be the set of equations that we are going to consider. And so first, as I said, that we will consider the exact solutions for torsion. So in your strength of materials courses, you have studied the torsion of circular cylinders. So that is only maybe solid circular cylinders and hollow circular cylinders. So in this course, we will study also the torsion of non-circular cylinders, and so that is going to be the main difference as compared to the strength of material. So you will see that non-circular cylinders cannot be handled under the strength of materials approximation. So we need the theory of elasticity in order to find solutions for non-circular cylinders here. So, but we'll begin with circular cylinders and then go on to study the case of non-circular cylinders here. So, so first let us take the case of circular cylinder. So let me just state the equations. So we are going to use the cylindrical polar coordinate system. Okay, and so that's why we will first write the equations for the strain displacement relation and the equilibrium equations in cylindrical coordinates. So epsilon r is equal to del ur by del r, epsilon theta theta is equal to 1 by r times del u theta by del theta plus ur, then epsilon zz is equal to del uz by del z, then epsilon r theta is equal to 1 by r del ur by del theta plus r times del by del r of u theta by r, epsilon theta z is equal to 1 by 2 del u theta by del z plus 1 by r times del u z by del theta, and epsilon rz is equal to del ur by del z plus del uz by del r. So these are the strain displacement relations and the equilibrium equations here. So let us write those also. So del tau r by del r plus 1 by r times del tau r theta by del theta plus del tau rz by del z plus tau r minus tau theta theta by r plus rho times dr equal to 0, and del tau theta r by del r plus 1 by r times del tau theta theta by del theta plus del tau theta z by del z plus 2 times tau r theta by r plus rho times d theta equal to 0, and del tau zr by del r plus 1 by r times del tau r theta by del theta plus del tau zz by del z plus tau rz by R plus rho times dz is equal to 0. So these are the equilibrium equations, and these are the strain displacement relations here. So this is there R I del R epsilon theta is equal to 1 by R. So what we have to ensure is that suppose if we propose a solution, then it has to satisfy all these equilibrium equations, the strain displacement relations and the constitutive relation and the appropriate boundary conditions also. Okay, so that is what we have to ensure here. So let us look at the setup now, the circular cylinder. So the setup is this way. So there is a circular cylinder here. And so this is your X, Y, and this is your Z axis, and this is R, and this is theta. So this is the cylindrical coordinate system. So this R is the radial position of any point. Then theta is the angle made by this position vector with respect to the X axis. And the Z axis is along the axis of the circular cylinder here. And let us take the length to be L and the radius of the circular cylinder to be K. So this is the system, coordinate system that we are going to use to verify our solution. So what we are going to do is that, as you can see, this system of equations is very complicated, right? So what we typically do is that we try out certain solutions, okay? So not always, but at least in this situation, what we can do is we can try the strength of material solution. And so this strength of materials solution is derived under certain kinematic assumptions, as you know. And so what we will do is we will try out this strength of material solution to see if it satisfies all the equilibrium equations and the boundary conditions. And if it satisfies, then it is an exact solution. And we don't need to look for any other solution, because by the uniqueness of the solution, this is the only solution. Right? Okay, so now here, one thing that we need to note is that the tractions are applied on the top surface. Okay, so the torque is generated because of the torque on because of tractions on the top surface. So let me just illustrate that. So suppose let us take that. Suppose if this is the circular cylinder, then the tractions are applied on the top surface. So like this. Okay, and then on the bottom surface also you are applying traction. So the twisting is occurring like this. So the lateral surface of this cylinder, that is traction free. So that is, there are no forces that are acting on the lateral surface here. All the whole torque is actually applied by applying tractions on the top and the bottom surfaces. And this is going to be the case for even the non-circular cylinders that we are going to study at a later stage here. Fine. Then so this the resultant torque is T. Okay, so that is the resultant torque due to the tractions that are applied on the top and the bottom surfaces here. Okay, then now UR is equal to 0. So this is the solution that we are now proposing. U theta is equal to alpha Rz and Uz is equal to 0. So this is your strength of materials solution here, where this alpha is known as the twist per unit length. Alpha is twist per unit length. Okay, and so the only non-zero strain, okay, that results from this is gamma theta z. So gamma theta z is equal to 2 times epsilon theta z, that is equal to alpha times r. So if you substitute this particular displacement field in the strain displacement relation, right? You will see that epsilon RR is 0, theta theta is 0, and so on. Okay, so this is the only term that turns out to be non-zero. Okay, so that is this epsilon gamma theta z, which is 2 times epsilon theta z, that is alpha times alpha. Then this is del u theta by del z, because del u z by del theta will turn out to be 0, because u z itself is 0. So this is the only non-zero component of strain that you get. And then from the constitutive relation, lambda trace of epsilon times identity plus 2 mu times epsilon, we will see that tau theta z is the only non-zero stress component, right? So you will get that tau theta z is equal to g times gamma theta z, which is equal to g times alpha times r. This g is the same as mu. Okay, so g is equal to mu. Mu is this Lamy constant here. So that we have seen that mu and g are the same. That is the shear modulus. So where g is equal to E divided by 2 into 1 plus mu. So that we have already seen. So these are the only non-zero components. So only non-zero components are these things here. And then okay, so then now you can see that if you substitute this component here in these equations of equilibrium, you will see that the equations of equilibrium are automatically satisfied, correct? Because so here you can see that this is going to be trivially satisfied, because tau r, tau r theta, tau theta theta, etc. are all 0. This one is also going to be satisfied, because del tau theta z by del z, so there is no dependence on z, so that is going to go to 0. And I think this one is also going to be trivially satisfied. So all the 3 equilibrium equations are satisfied here. So let us write that here. So yes. So equations of equilibrium. Okay, so what we have verified so far is that the equations of equilibrium are satisfied, right? But we also have to check whether the boundary conditions are satisfied here, right? So one thing to note here is that the compatibility relations we do not need to check the compatibility relation, because we are starting from the displacement field, right? And so we are deriving the strain field from the displacement field. So suppose if we had guessed the stress field, okay, then we would need to ensure that compatibility relations are satisfied, as we were doing in the Airy stress function approach. But here, since we are starting from the displacement, which is a compatible displacement, we don't need to check for compatibility, because this is already a single value displacement, right? The whole purpose behind checking the compatibility relations is to ensure that the displacements are single valued. But here we can already see that the displacements are single valued in this particular case, and hence we don't need to check for that here. Fine. So what is the maximum shear stress that can occur here? So R is the radial coordinate here, right? So this so the maximum value is going to be, so tau theta z maximum is equal to g alpha a. See, because it increases linearly with the radial coordinate r, okay, and then when r is equal to a is the actual radius of this cylinder, then we will get the maximum value here. And so actually if I draw the state of stress on an element of this circular cylinder, let me draw that here. This part I don't need now. So if I take this circular cylinder now, so this is the surface, this is the lateral surface, so then your tau theta z is acting in this particular way. And yes, so this stress, actually, if you find out the principal stresses corresponding to this tau theta z, okay, then we will see that suppose if we draw the mode circle, so the mode circle will look something like this. Okay, so this is the state of stress, right? Because there is only shear stress, there is no normal stress on that particular element here. So if you go 90 degree on the mode circle, so that will be 45 degrees in the actual space there, right? So suppose if I again draw this particular element here, then you will get that you will get a tensile and a compressive stress in this particular way. And then so these are now the principal stresses along at 45 degrees. So this is at inclined at 45 degree because it is 90 degree on the mode circle, it is 45 degree in the actual space here. So if the material is brittle, for example, right, then it is weak in tension, right? So what will happen is that you can see this tension that is occurring, right? So the failure will occur at 45 degree. Okay, so if the failure doesn't occur horizontally, see actually the shear stress is along the horizontal plane, but you will see that the failure occurs at 45 degree because as I said that the maximum principal stress is at 45 degree to the horizontal plane here. And if the material is brittle, then it is weak in tension, so it will fail under tension. So let us carry out this experiment here. So this is a chalk, which is a brittle material, and now if I twist it, you can see this, right, that there is the angle at which the failure is occurring is at 45 degree. So you can easily carry out this experiment at home also. So you will see that the failure has occurred at 45 degree. So the reason is that because it's a brittle material, chalk is a brittle material, basically it cannot take tension, and so the principal stress, which is acting at 45 degree, causes the failure along a 45 degree helix. So basically the failure is along that helix. So that is what you can see from this one. Okay, so as I said that we have already verified the equilibrium equations, but we have not verified the boundary conditions. Okay, so let us do that. So this tau theta z expression I will keep here. Tau theta z is equal to g times gamma theta z, which is equal to g alpha times r. And what we need to now check is that the forces on the along the x and the y direction, they should be 0. See, because what I am doing is that on the top and the bottom surfaces, I am simply applying a torque. So there is no resultant force along the x and the y directions on the top and also on the bottom surfaces here. So, so first what we do is that on the surface z is equal to L. Right? So on the surface z is equal to L, your normal is equal to 0, 0, 1. Correct? That is along the, so that is this norm here. So that is along the z direction, and so the traction vector there is t is equal to tr t theta tz, that is equal to 0, then g alpha r and 0. So that because basically if you write out the stress tensor, so it is all 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, tau theta z, tau z, this is 0, this is tau z theta 0, and then this is multiplying 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. So that will give you tau theta z, which is g alpha r on the top surface here. So if I draw this top surface here, the traction will be along this particular direction. That is g alpha r is acting along the tangential direction because p theta. So it is acting along the tangential direction on this top surface. So this is the cross section. I'm just cutting it here. So at any cross section, you will get this as the traction that is acting, including on the top surface also. So now if we find out what is the x and the y components of this traction, so t x, t y, t z is equal to minus g alpha r times sine theta, then g alpha r cos theta, and 0. So these are the tractions along the x and y direction. So this is obtained using that relation that t in the Cartesian system. So this is Cartesian system is equal to q transpose times the traction in the cylindrical system. Okay, so using this relation, or here actually it is quite simple because t theta is along this particular direction. So if you simply resolve it along the x and the y directions, you will get whatever is written there. So that is minus g alpha r sine theta and g alpha r cos theta. So those are the components along the x and the y directions here. Fine. Then now we can find out what is the total force along the x direction here. So fx is equal to integral of 0 to 2 pi, then this is 0 to a of tx times r times dr times d theta. So this r times dr d theta is dA. So basically, if you recall, our forces is just integral of t times ds. Correct? So we are using this particular formula to find out what is the total force acting on the surface, on the top surface here. So 0 to 2 pi are the limits for theta, 0 to a are the limits for r dr d theta is dA, which is the same as ds. For this particular case, I am just writing it as dA, and tx is the traction component along the x direction. So that will give me f of x, and then this will turn out to be 0. So this is because tx is g alpha r sine theta, and integral of sine theta from 0 to 2 pi is equal to 0. Right? So this will just turn out to be 0. Similarly, you will get fy is equal to 0 to 2 pi 0 to a of ty times r dr d theta, that is also equal to 0. And since tz is equal to 0, so automatically fz is equal to 0. Fz is equal to 0. One has to be very careful while summing up, while finding these resultant forces here. So, for example, you cannot find, so just to give an example of how one can go wrong, okay? So you cannot find f of r is equal to, so I am just putting a question mark here, tr times r dr d theta. So you cannot do this, okay? So this is actually wrong, okay? Because see, if you take the radial direction, right? So the radial direction at some theta, it is here, okay? Then at some different theta, this is the radial direction, okay? So you cannot integrate because they are along different directions. You cannot integrate something along different directions and find out the resultant along r, okay? So this is not a correct way of finding the force along the radial direction. So the correct way, suppose if I wanted to find out the force along the radial direction, along this radial direction, then the correct way would be to first find fx and fy and then resolve it to find out what is the force along the radial direction. Okay, so that is the correct way to do these things. You cannot integrate it like this because, as I said, that at some theta, tr is along this direction. At some different theta, the tr is along this direction. So when you are integrating integrating it around different directions. So that will not give you the total force here. Okay, so one has to be very careful when one is using the curvilinear coordinates. Okay, whereas in the case of fx and fy, that is not an issue, because for x, all the components are going to be along this particular direction, right? And so if you just integrate, you will get the total force along the x direction, and similarly along the y direction and also the z direction. So one has to be careful while carrying out these integrations, as you can see from this particular example here. Okay, then what about the lateral surface now? So on the lateral surface, so let us write that here somewhere. So on the lateral surface, the normal is equal to 1, 0, 0. Correct? So this is the normal in the r theta z coordinate system. Okay, not in the x, y, z. So everything has to be referred to the curvilinear coordinate system, and so the normal would be 1, 0, 0 in that particular case. And so if you multiply this stress tensor with 1, 0, 0, so you'll get 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 tau theta z, 0 tau theta z, 0 times 1, 0, 0, you will get 0. Right? So that is just the tractions are just going to be 0, 0, 0. Correct? So automatically you will see that the traction free boundary condition is satisfied on the lateral surfaces. Okay, so we have now verified all the boundary conditions. Okay, so the only condition that is left now is the torque condition, right? So we are given that the resultant torque that is acting is T, and we do not know what alpha is, right? Alpha is the twist per unit length. So basically we need to connect this alpha to this T, which is the torque that is acting on this top surface here. So that we get by finding the torque on the top surface here. So we have seen that the moment is given by x cross t. So we know that the moment is x cross t. So that we know times v. So this is the moment that acts on any given surface, right? This is over S. So in this case, we want to find out what is the moment due to the distribution of tractions acting on the top surface here. So so you will get that T times Ez now is equal to integral from 0 to 2 pi, integral from 0 to a of r times dr cross T on the top surface times r dr d theta. So this is this x cross t. I'm just writing it in this particular way. R is the position vector on this top surface. So actually there is a z also. So you can even write it as L by L times Ez also. But that does not play any role because L is just a constant. Okay, and so integral of t we have already verified that is 0. This z Ez does not need to be considered in this particular case here. Okay, so we will get that. So if you write this t as only t theta is the non-zero component in this particular case. So you will get that 0 to 2 pi. Then this is 0 to a of t theta times r square times dr times d theta. So this is what we will get here. Now this let me just write it here. So this is actually t theta e theta. That is the only non-zero component that we saw. That g alpha r was the only non-zero component here, and so you will get only this as a term. And if you substitute now g alpha r for t theta, so this is g alpha r, and if you substitute that into this, then what you will get is that you will get g times j times alpha times Ez. So this is what you will get here. And j now is the polar moment of inertia. equal to integral of r square ds over s, so that is equal to pi a to the 4 by 2, and this is nothing but the polar motion of the moment of inertia. Right? So your alpha, that is the twist per unit length, is equal to t divided by gj. Right? So this is a formula that you are already familiar with. So here recall that this alpha is the twist per unit length. Okay, so if you want the total twist, so that will be TL by gg. Okay, so this formula you are already familiar from your strength of materials solution. So this is exactly the same, except that now we have derived it in a much more rigorous framework by showing that the strength of material solution is also an elasticity solution, right? That it satisfies all the equations of equilibrium, equations of compatibility we don't need to check because they are automatically satisfied. It's a single value displacement field, and also the boundary conditions, right? So we have verified that all the conditions that are required for an exact solution are satisfied by our strength of material solution, and so so basically this is an exact solution, and because of the uniqueness of solutions in linear elasticity, we do not need to check whether there is any other solution, because only we need to find only one solution, and if that satisfies everything, then that's it. We don't need to check for anything else. So this is the solution for a solid circular cylinder, but the same development will go through for a hollow circular cylinder also. Okay, so same solution, so same solution for U also holds for a hollow cylinder, a hollow circular cylinder. But only one thing is that when we find this, when we consider this torque equation here, right, then in that case the limits of integration are not 0 to a, they will be a to b. Correct? So suppose if this hollow circular cylinder has an inner radius of a and an outer radius of b, so in that case your t is z, so t will be equal to integral from 0 to 2 pi a to b of t theta times r square times dr times d theta, and so you will get that j will be equal to pi by 2 times b raised to 4 minus a raised to 4. So that is what you will get in this particular case. So as I said, that essentially the solution is the same, only because these integration limits are different in the case of a hollow cylinder. So that is why, and again you can verify that all the boundary conditions. So now in a hollow cylinder you also need to verify whether the boundary conditions on the inside surface are satisfied, and so again they will also be satisfied in this particular case, and you will get this. So this here I have used the mathematical expression for this, that is t Ez is equal to r er cross t, but we can also argue about this physically also. So that means suppose if you have a circular cylinder and then this is your t theta, correct? So that is acting at a radius r, so t theta is acting on r dr d theta, correct? So this is your element of area r dr d theta. So t theta times r dr d theta is the force that is acting along this particular direction, right? And then that multiplied by r, so that will make it r square, that will give me the moment that is acting on this particular element of area, and then when you integrate this over the whole area, that will give you the total moment. And so this whole term is exactly this, whatever I have written here, d theta times r square times dr d theta. So of course this is derived mathematically using x cross t, but you could also look at it physically and get the same answer. Okay, so books by Timoshenko and all that, they will directly write these formulae based on the physical picture here, like this in this particular case here. Yeah. Now the thing to note again is that the tractions on the top surface, that is given by that G alpha R, right? So that is here whatever I've written here. So this is equal to G alpha R. So this is the traction that is acting on the top surface here, and a similar traction acts on the bottom surface also. So in order for this solution to be an exact solution, the traction has to be applied in this particular manner alone. Okay, so you cannot get the resultant torque by applying some other distribution of traction. So again, that Savena principle comes in handy here. That suppose if the torque T is generated by another distribution of tractions, not this particular thing, then near to the top and the bottom surfaces, the stress distribution will be very different. But as you go away from the top and the bottom surfaces, the stresses will almost be the same as in the exact solution. So every time we have to invoke the Savena principle, because the traction distribution in a practical situation is not likely to be the same as the traction distribution in an exact solution, right? Whatever is coming out of your exact solution. And so, so in this exact solution, we have to apply the tractions in this particular manner. Now, you may ask that, suppose if I apply the traction distribution in some other way, can I find the exact solution? So, yes, so the answer is yes, you can find it, but it will be much more complicated. I mean, so here we found that the strength of material solution was the solution. In that particular case, we will see that that is no longer going to be the solution. So maybe there is now a dependence on R and Z, and then here we found that there was only one non-zero stress component. So there, if you had a more complicated distribution of tractions on this upper surface, maybe the other stress components are non-zero. So the situation just gets more complicated. Okay, so here, as I said, that since we are just entering into this field, we will keep things simple, and so under this traction distribution, this is the solution that comes out of this whole thing here. Okay, let's see. So we will now just note the displacement and the stress components in the Cartesian system here. So let us look at that. So, yes, so for future use, okay, for future the displacement components, Ux is equal to minus alpha yz, Uy is equal to alpha xz, and tau xz is equal to minus g alpha y, and tau yz is equal to g alpha x. Okay, so this is derived from the so basically these are the displacement components for the circular cylinder. So this is the solution for circular cylinder in Cartesian. So the solution for circular cylinder, in Cartesian form. So as usual, we have just transformed the cylindrical coordinate components to the Cartesian Cartesian system, Cartesian coordinates. And here you will see that Uz is equal to 0. Right? So you are not writing it here, but Uz is basically 0. So each plane here. So suppose when I am twisting a circular cylinder like this, right? Then each plane rotates in its own plane, right? And so basically, there is no out of plane motion of a point that is on this particular surface. So if there is a point on the surface z is equal to constant, then it remains at z equal to constant, right? So the whole motion is just tangential. There is no motion, there is no out of plane motion, right? So that is the solution that we get in the case of a circular cylinder. But once we go to non-circular cylinders, then actually we will see that now there is a phenomenon known as warping. Okay, so that means now, so suppose this duster has a rectangular cross section. So now again we are going to apply tractions on the top and the bottom surfaces here, and we will see that now there is an out of plane motion here. So that means there is going to be a uz now. Okay, so in the case of a circular cylinder, we saw that planar cross sections, they just rotate in their own plane, right? Each plane cross section just rotates in its own plane. But now, once we consider this non-circular cylinder like this, when you apply a torque on the top and the bottom surfaces, there is going to be a uz also in this particular direction. And so that is known as a warping of the cross section. Okay, so warping is like a perturbation on the top and the bottom surfaces here. Okay, so that phenomenon is called warping of the cross section here. So we will look at that maybe in the next class. But I will just note that for non-circular cylinders, for non-circular cylinders, uz is not equal to 0. So this is called as warping. So we will study that in the next class when we do that, consider this problem in greater detail.